5-6 years ago, looking at how and what way can we contribute in. Hi Radha, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the AIM Media House podcast, Simulated Reality. How are you doing today?
Hi Kashyap, very happy to be here
Yeah,
and doing well. Yes.
fantastic. We are right in the heart of the Silicon Valley. Conversation on data is a must. While the Valley is very busy talking about Gen AI, I want to go to the basics. I want to revisit what makes that Gen AI so good, that is data. And iMerit is building, state-of-the-art technology for data annotation. And can you tell me where this journey started? What was the thought process? Why were you motivated to start a data annotation service provider company?
First of all, I find it refreshing that you're not asking me about Gen AI. That's not all that I get asked about. What are you doing in generative AI?
Yeah.
For us, the journey started about 6 years ago. The company is 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we will be celebrating our 10th anniversary on January 12th with an all hands of all 5,300 employees. So we're really looking forward to it. We started about 5-6 years ago looking at how and what way can we contribute into the veracity and the more stringent way of building models. Models that, if you look at the whole curve in terms of the double eight curve or whatever they call it, right? Can't say meta curve anymore, but that curve. You look at all the pieces to do with building models, and then they get into the production, which gets into the operation side. So we started at the building of models, and we felt that if we set up technology, and I come from the technology thing, we come from developing software products and stuff like that. If we set that up and we had the best expertise and the technique, so bringing together the technology, the talent, the expertise, and the technique. If we brought that together in data annotation, then the products, the models that were built, because all of AI is learning through examples, then those would contribute into getting very safe, very accurate, very high performance production of AI as it gets into production. That was the fundamental thinking of getting into data annotation. And frankly, 6 years ago, data annotation as an industry, there weren't like 50 people looking at how to do bounding boxes or things on the document AI side. It was truly looking at it holistically and saying, how do you build the best models which can then be launched into production, into operations? That's where the journey started. So we looked at how do you marry, what is the best technology we can have, either ours, a partner, or client. Clients have a lot of technology platforms, our clients, and they all happen to be pretty advanced researchers, product people, all building product. And then we combined it with very good talent, and I'll talk about this, how we developed it. Didn't start with, do we have AI talented people out there? And the techniques around how do you build it. So, yeah.
Correct. With that in mind, right, now that I always like to set the context first, right, to start at the very beginning. The data industry has evolved a lot. It is continuously evolving. One of the things is, I think in general, technology has been evolving as very fast, but especially data-driven technologies, the shelf life of these things are very low. Data annotation is a technique where you kind of put your services to label data in a way that can train an AI model. I'm sorry you don't want to talk about Gen AI, but a lot of Gen AI solutions today are kind of working to create these data samples, right? You can just put a prompt and say, hey, can you give me 500 images, labeled images with different kinds of these things. How do you see the intervention of this Gen AI into your business models? Does it threaten the kind of business model that you have, or does it kind of enhance, enable it? How are you approaching this entire?
In a deeply, or rather I would say intensely thoughtful way, we're not a hype company. We're not like we're jumping on Gen AI for this jumping. Gen AI is a critical part of the evolution of AI.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Why do we embrace it? And why are we not scared of it? Oh, will it take away jobs? AI, in order for AI to really proliferate the market, you cannot be doing the level of data annotation. You can't have, we've looked at this. Don't even ask me why we looked at it some time ago. I think some investor asked us. We've done over 4 billion annotations. Okay? 4 billion. You can't be doing annotations in that large scale from scratch in each case. You have to be able to prompt the technology, generate things automatically. We ourselves, and Sudeep, who heads up our engineering, he is all about, and it's funny to listen to him talk to our head of delivery. Sudeep would say, okay, there is that use case. How do I automate it? And he considered that super critical to really providing the solutions to customers. Anupam's sitting there saying, Sudeep, are you automating me out of my business? And Sudeep's like, no, we want to make this is what generative AI is. How do you reinforce the learning? How do you learn from it? How do you build on top of existing models? So I will talk later about something called purpose-built applications, which take existing models and build on top of it, build automation in it, focused on a particular industry, which we will talk about some of these. So to us, generative AI actually is a way to a tech-propelled business, and we believe that our role in it with the tech, especially with the Ango hub that we now have that we purchased, that the company we purchased, and the reinforced learning that comes at every stage with the human feedback, the expert feedback, is at the crux of generative AI. Mm-hmm. And we want that to improve at every step. I really don't want what I did 6 months ago, I don't want to be doing today, to be very honest. And I want to be able to take that built into the model or using the Gen AI and doing the next step. And the kinds of things that are coming out of this, we've done a whole like a strategic paper in the company about generative AI in healthcare. Generative AI, as we are, some of the most complex technologies. I'll give one other example. Is of course in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, is driverless cars or autonomous vehicles. Not autonomous mobility, which is much broader, but autonomous vehicles and completely driverless. And we're like, what is generative AI going to do in that? And the application for safety in that, actually listening to how the model, the LiDAR model, whatever it is in that car, is thinking as it's encountering the road, the people, the whatever it is it's encountering, right? How is it thinking and making decisions, and actually having that come out in audio, having our people listen to it, understand the decision making of the AI model, and then change it based on working with the client, of course, change it based on where we think it's going wrong. That's the reinforced learning with human feedback. And the effect of generative AI, think of there 3 modalities. You have the huge computer vision, LiDAR, multi-sensor fusion. You have the audio AI, and you have the content or the document AI. All 3 coming together. And to me, we would never have been able to do this and contribute to the safety.
Yeah.
Like even a year ago, to be honest, maybe there were some forefront people. We were not able to do that.
Yeah, it's funny because data annotation was started because you wanted to train AI models. Now AI is being used as a technology to build data annotation techniques, right?
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's interesting, and that's I really want to kind of a little bit deep dive into that interplay, right? The labor going into building a technology, then the technology building into this, but you still said that you don't want to take the human out of the loop. right?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying I won't take the human out of the loop. Depends on the phase. If I were, we don't, for example, we don't do some of the basic things we did 5 years ago, bounding boxes, polygons, things like that. It's a lot of it is automated. We automated pre-ML automation. We do that ourselves. But where the decision making, I was talking about complete automation versus assisted automation, and where that human expertise, where safety is concerned, scaling is concerned, trust and auditing of the models, as especially in production. When I say production, I'm talking about ML ops in the broader way.
Got it.
Monitoring, test case scenarios, validation. These are things that, and it's not just edge case and anomalies. I'm talking about a normal operation. Being able to do that with the experts in the loop. What has happened with the humans is the expertise has gone up like that. What people were doing, expertise here, I would say we were doing that curve. I would say it's like 5 orders of magnitude in the last 2 years. That is a huge impact on us in terms of developing that expertise.
Can you give us an example in manufacturing? There's a lot of work that you are doing in defect detection, right? Just for the audience, right? It would paint a picture if you kind of helped understand this entire journey of how, because you've been doing it for 6 years and the company is there for 10 years. So you know how the journey was. Like the data annotation services that you are offering in 2023, almost entering 2024, are very different than what they were 6 years before, right? If you can take an example and help our audience understand what this industry has changed into, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say maybe it's 3-4 years ago, starting with, if you recall, people started looking at how can I do, I'll just take defect tracking.
Yeah.
Just take that.
Yeah, because that's a good use case.
That's a good use case. Ball bearings, they're not the right ones. They've got defects. Steel beams have defects. Tiles have defects. Whatever it might be, there are defects. I've seen one super application, which I really enjoyed seeing, just because it's out of the ordinary, is AI in winemaking in Napa, and how they were able to look at the grape, not grapes, the grape, and be able to sort grapes out. And I ended up going for a wine tasting and ended up spending the next 4 hours talking to them about the technology. But let's come to manufacturing. So what would we do as a data annotation company, say, through 3-4 years ago? We would actually find the different kinds of defects and things like that, and we would label. We would look at those, we would label, we would draw the, defects can be, most of them were through computer vision because you're looking at things, and we would label it, we would do polygons, sometimes very complex computer vision annotations. And then that would be used to train the model, and then would go into the model, and then they would utilize it, etc. From time to time, those models would come back to us, is it working or not? How could we improve it? But and we would use our own technology platform, or we would use, data annotation platform. And you would provide the reports and things. So now fast forward to what are we doing today? And I didn't talk about the steps in between that's happened over the last 3 years. 2 things, 2 major changes. We're looking at this now as a whole life cycle. So you start with the whatever the manufacturing part is, the parts, part on the floor. And you look at manufacturing, you look even at the machinery that's doing the detection, and look at whether they are doing the detection at that pixel level. Look at a grape, damaged grape, just at that level, or a ball bearing. There is a minute error in the ball bearing, it's going to cause all kinds of issues later. So you look at it not in its isolation, but that then goes into a part of a product, a package, and the packaging it gets shipped, and then it's taken up on by robots, picked up on the warehousing floor in the factory, and then it goes into product and gets shipped out. the whole idea is if we were doing, and oh, we also did, just to put this in context, we also did the automated robots. We did a lot of that work annotation. So the robots would send back from the warehouse the information. They'd be going around. In fact, we were quite famous for doing this maybe 3 years ago. And would send the information back, and we would actually categorize it, annotate it, categorize it, find the defects, kinds of things. And at that point, we were basically looking at the sort of the robotic, not fully roboticized, but a robotic warehouse. And we find all kinds of defects in it. So now what is being looked at is you start here, you go to the next step into the packaging, there's a set of defect detection there, there's this detection at the next stage, The idea being that if you detect right in the beginning, then your efficiencies of manufacturing, your efficiencies in the costs, the problems don't get picked up later, because you get picked up here, you'd have to send the part back. You get picked up here, you pick it up in the machinery, it's even earlier. So that's the context, okay? Little long-winded answer, but you asked how has it changed?
No, definitely. I think this is helping understand. This is what will help us understand in detail.
So now manufacturing organizations, but it's manufacturing to packaging to delivery to warehousing, all of those organizations, there are many players, are looking at defect detection to happen as early as possible, even at the material level, not even after it's manufactured, at the material level. And that applies whether you're a manufacturing company, like a company that your father runs, or you are an Amazon that's got all these products in the warehouse and don't want these things be shipping back. The return is the biggest issue there, right? Or completely stopping a shift, and you want it to go right back here. It's applicable whether you're manufacturing cars, ball bearings, steel products, etc. So we started with saying, we will build something. You know how, going back to that generative AI word, there is this whole idea of purpose-built applications.
Okay.
What is a purpose-built application? It says that I am building on models that are already there. I'm not starting from scratch. I have a hub, a technology hub. It allows me, the workflows in these for different people are different. It allows me to model my workflows and to actually be able to do it online along with the client, with our solutions architect. I will do that. And then I will start to insert in which points I will do this defect detection. So it's a very dynamic process. Then the purpose-built application says there are already models that are looking at, I can get off the shelf, or I can get it from a dolly, I can get from any number of things. I think we work with something like 20 plus different models. Sudeep will tell you all those names. He will take those and he'll say, on top of this, I'm going to build this purpose-built application. It has 4 things in it. It has the hub, the platform on which you can customize your workflows. It has an automated set of models which get you like 5 steps ahead. Don't start from scratch, but it gives you the ability to customize. It gives you the ability to build and automate new models based on what data is being looked at. So it is data. So technology drove the annotation. Now the annotators are driving the technology and saying, you technology need to look at these kind of defects, not these others. And it's doing the reinforced learning with human feedback. And that PBA, which we announced recently for defect detection, is a core part of how a manufacturing company catches defects early on. But it doesn't stop there. It goes into the next step and the next step, and that whole flow. A manufacturing company, like even a steel defects, tile defects, ball bearing defects. I talked about some of the other ones to do with manufacturing in cars, each part of it. Believe me that these are not things you just throw a model off the shelf and voila, it works. It requires so much work to figure out. This is where data and the human drive the technology. You get the data from it. You have reinforced learning with human feedback. That term RLHF is real, and that goes into driving the technology again. That is a purpose built application. Pretty soon, that becomes automated, and you may go from uh, 20% defects down to 2% defects, right at stages 1 or 2. So by the time you get into the warehousing floor, the kinds of defects you're looking for are different. Even for the same company, the warehouse defects are different from the manufacturing defect detection. And it tells you how the workflows are different. That is a purpose built application. It's absolutely, for me, what is exciting, and I get very passionate about this, is that it is such a almost a perfect way of collaborating with the client, doing these workflows together. Our solution architects work with them, taking existing models so you're not reinventing the wheel, getting the data, using that to reinforce it. And as you said right up front, I was thinking about it when you said it, technology drove data annotation. Now, data annotation, it's not just annotation, it's the intelligence, the judgment, the edge cases, all of that is now driving the technology. And it is this loop that's making that work.
Correct. From what you said, right? What I'm collecting, the information that I'm trying understanding is essentially the stage at which in the manufacturing life cycle, the stage at which this data annotation services that is changing, right? If I'm not wrong.
More than the stage, the type of, we're not even able to call it data annotation anymore because so much of it is not annotation. It's about, it's, for example, monitoring, test case scenarios, those kinds of things, right? Intricate, kind of custom, intricate test scenarios. You've discovered a certain set of defects, and those test scenarios to test those are different. And we generate, so we're not just doing the annotation, we're actually generating the test case scenarios. Client is saying, this is what I want to see and want to do it. I think the conceptually, Kashyap, think of it as you're creating this digital twin of a manufacturing floor.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm careful not to get into the latest fad words, but conceptually, it's really interesting. The manufacturing floor and it going into packaging and it going into shipping and logistics and into the warehouse is a series of steps.
Correct.
Okay? What we are doing is helping to create that digital twin so that you can look at it from a data point of view at each of those phases and do the defect tracking. And in one case, it may be more than defect tracking, it may actually be warehouse filling, what goes on the shelf and what does not, or looking at rejects. There are many phases like that. But let's just take simply 5 phases. You're creating a digital twin of that.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that important? Because you are able to use the data that's coming out of, let's say, the defect detection phase into the next phase and feed it into the digital twin and see what things so data becomes data, your annotation, your experts, their judgment, test case scenarios, anomaly detection become what drives the path of this through this digital twin. Just the concept of creating the digital twin is of a huge help to these organizations.
On that note of really talking about the state of the art applications, which are probably saving lives and improving efficiencies. Thank you so much, Radha, for making the time. It was a very interesting conversation. It was very interesting to see how passionate you are about this subject. Thank you again.
Thank you, Kashyap. It was really, I enjoyed it because you asked questions and we had a conversation. It wasn't like
Yeah.
talking
Fantastic.
features, products, etc. So
Thank you.
thank you.